The scale of the government's initiative will match the challenges of our time.
You're not going to believe this, but Buckingham Palace? It has never felt this heavy, this intense, and in the heart of it all stood King Charles, completely alone. Inside the iconic blue drawing room, yes, the same room we've all seen in royal Christmas broadcasts, Charles's voice broke the silence. I can no longer serve as your king. Wait, what? His voice cracked. Not with scandal, not politics, but with raw emotion. This was a man, not just a monarch, and behind the regal exterior was a devastating secret, a hidden illness, not just the flu or exhaustion, cancer, and not the kind that gives you hope for years. No, this was cruel, quietly aggressive, and time was slipping through his fingers. The palace's official statements, they talked about treatment, rest, staying optimistic, but behind those closed palace doors, the truth was way darker. It started subtly. Fatigue, canceled appearances, shorter speeches. People close to him noticed more, a tremble in his hand, a wince when he stood too long. Something was off. Then came the hushed hospital visits. You didn't hear about those in the press, did you? That's because they were scheduled between public duties. Very secretive. And then the collapse. Yes, you read that right. Charles collapsed. It happened at Sandringham during a private policy meeting. He crumpled into an armchair, totally drained. And the only person there, Prince William. That moment shattered everything. Later that night, doctors gave him the brutal truth. You have months, not years. As a king, as a man, as a father, as a grandfather. The next morning, William was called into Charles's private quarters. No guards, no aides, just the two of them. I want to be present for them, Charles whispered, eyes locked on a photo of his grandchildren. I want to see them grow while I still can. Heartbreaking, truly. But what made this even harder? Catherine. She had just turned a corner in her own battle with cancer. Charles watched her fight her strength, and it broke him. He saw how much it took, and he knew this nation couldn't survive with two royals fighting silent wars. A senior palace aide even said it. The king realized he couldn't lead and battle his illness. Not anymore. So he made the most unthinkable, unimaginable choice. Not out of weakness, but out of love. For family, for legacy, for the precious time slipping through his fingers. And where did this all unfold? Not in some grand throne room. It happened at Highgrove, Charles's personal sanctuary. The air smelled of polished wood and old books. But that day, it held something else. Grief, finality. William arrived late. The staff had been dismissed. It was just him and Charles. No fanfare, just a father and son standing on either side of a life-altering decision. You can't just abandon the crown, father, William said, tension already thick in his voice. Not like this. Not when the country still needs you. Charles didn't turn right away. He was staring out at his garden, but when he did finally face William, he didn't look like a king anymore. He looked like a man on the edge of his strength. I'm not abandoning anything, he whispered. I'm choosing what little time I have left. And then the dam broke. Charles cried, I wake up every day unsure if I'll make it to nightfall without collapsing. I can't be the king this country deserves. But I can still be a grandfather. He looked straight at William. I need to see them grow. That's all I ask. William's face tightened. Torn between duty and love, the monarch in him was screaming, but the son remembered the pain of losing his mother. And this felt too familiar. Later, Catherine walked in. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. She simply took William's hand. That one moment studied everything. William's eyes glistened. His voice cracked. All right, he said, I'll do it, but not for the crown, for you. There it was, a son's promise. That's what sealed it. Not a royal decree, not parliament, just family. Then came the moment no one could ever have imagined, the abdication speech. In the same blue drawing room where Queen Elizabeth once gave her holiday messages, Charles stood under her grand portrait. This time, the room was silent, no festive lights, just grief and history hanging in the air. The cameras rolled, the curtains were drawn, only a few trusted aides were there. No one breathed. Charles opened the parchment, his hands trembled, his voice, usually so firm, was soft, cracking under the weight of what he was about to say. I have carried the mantle of duty, service, and tradition for more than a lifetime, he said, but the time has come to pass that responsibility on. He paused. I'm abdicating the throne. Gasps, tears. One aide reportedly sobbed quietly behind the camera. I hereby name Prince William and his wife Catherine as my successors to assume the full responsibilities of the monarchy effective immediately. Boom. Just like that. Tradition shattered. There would be no slow transition, no waiting. My time, as I now understand it, is no longer measured in years, but in moments. That line? Devastating. A quiet confession behind a regal exterior. He wasn't stepping aside for popularity or pressure. He was running out of time. The speech ended, the camera stopped, but no one moved. Everyone was frozen. The room, the monarchy, the country, nothing would be the same again. The echo of King Charles's abdication hadn't even settled when William and Catherine slipped quietly into a private sitting room just off the King's gallery. The corridors of Buckingham were still whispering, stunned, no aides, no cameras, just the two of them, the future king and queen, sitting there in total disbelief. The air, heavy. So heavy, not just with shock, but with the reality of what had just landed on their shoulders. Catherine's voice was barely audible. "Are we ready for this?" she whispered, her hand trembling slightly. "The children, they're so young." William didn't answer right away. He couldn't. His eyes were locked on the fireplace, his thoughts 1,000 miles away. He always knew this day would come. Eventually. But not like this, not with his father's tearful words still fresh in his ears, not with a crown falling into his hands before his 50th birthday. He wasn't grieving a title, he was grieving the timeline they thought they had. Later that evening, they gathered their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, in their private family quarters. No royal announcements, no rehearsed lines, just parents sitting on a couch with 3 wide-eyed children staring back at them. George sat up straight, his young face already grasping the gravity in the air. Charlotte leaned into Catherine's side, her small hands clutching her mother's. "And Louis?" Sweet little Louis just fidgeted, confused by the tension surrounding him. "Grandpa is stepping down," William said softly, choosing each word carefully. "And now, Mommy and I will be taking on more. A lot more." George's brow furrowed, but he nodded. "I understand, Papa," he said with a calmness that seemed far beyond his age. "I'll help you. But Charlotte..." "Oh, Charlotte." Her lower lip trembled. Then came the tears. Quiet, no tantrum, just the heartbreaking sorrow of a little girl realizing her world had just changed forever. Her childhood, once so protected, had just been shortened in one sentence. "And Louis? Is everyone crying?" he asked, voice small and innocent. Catherine pulled him into her arms and whispered something no one else could hear. His little fingers clutched her collar tightly. That night, there were no royal duties, no strategy sessions, just bedtime stories. William hugging George longer than usual, Catherine tucking Charlotte under a warm blanket and rocking Louis to sleep, still full of questions. Yes, they were the future monarchs of Britain, but in that moment, they were just a family, clinging to each other before the world changed again. And while the public was still reeling behind palace walls, more secrets were being whispered, because King Charles's decision wasn't made overnight. Oh no, this storm had been building quietly for months. There were signs. Missed appearances, wobbly hands, the king looking winded after walking short distances. But no one outside the palace truly understood how bad it had gotten. The public still saw Charles as a symbol of strength, but those closest to him, they were quietly panicking. The cancer diagnosis had been shared with senior aides long before it was ever hinted at to the public. The plan was hope, treatment, rest. But hope faded fast. Insiders saw the weight loss, the trembling hands, the last-minute cancellations that grew more frequent. And with each passing week, it was harder to pretend. Official statements talked about lightened duties and routine care, but truthfully, the monarchy was holding its breath. And then came the brutal turning point. A private doctor's consultation at Windsor. The verdict? Stress is accelerating the disease. Continuing in this role may kill you. That wasn't advice. That was a red line, a warning written in stone. That same night, Charles sat down with William and Catherine again. No formality, no palace theatrics, just 3 people, bound by blood, bound by heartbreak. William spoke first. He wasn't angry. He was scared. "We need you alive more than we need you on the throne," he said, his voice cracked. He wasn't speaking as the heir. He was speaking as a son. And Catherine, always calm, always steady, looked Charles in the eye and said something so simple yet so profound. This isn't failure, it's wisdom. And finally, Charles didn't push back. He didn't argue. He nodded. This wasn't surrender, it wasn't weakness, it was a choice. A final act of clarity. A king choosing presence over power. A grandfather choosing his family over tradition. And the world? The world didn't take long to respond. The very next morning, the country woke to headlines they never expected to read. "I can no longer serve as your king." It was on every front page, every news bulletin, every phone notification. Shock rippled through the streets of London and beyond. Outside Buckingham Palace, crowds began to gather, unprompted, emotional, in disbelief. Tourists, locals, royalists, even critics. Some stood silent. Some wept. Many held flowers. A few just clutched their chests like they'd lost something personal. On social media, it was an emotional explosion. 2 hashtags shot straight to the top worldwide. Save the King, William and Catherine. One was full of heartbreak. The other, hope. Hope for the future. People posted side-by-side photos. Charles in his youth, now frail. William as a heartbroken boy at Diana's funeral, now a leader standing beside his wife with the weight of a kingdom on his shoulders. The reactions weren't just sympathy, they were complex. Grief, gratitude, but also relief. Optimism. He asked one of his tutors, "Will I ever be able to say no?" The weight of the crown already tugging at his shoulders. Charlotte, only 10, has become the quiet glue. She comforts Louis when the lessons feel too hard. She grounds George when he gets lost in duty. She may not hold a title yet, but emotionally, she's the heartbeat. And Louis? Sweet 7-year-old Louis, he struggles most. During one etiquette lesson, he cried and asked, "Can I still be little?" Catherine knelt beside him, pulled him close, and whispered, "Always." And amidst all the pressure, the protocol, the intense global spotlight, this family still has dinner together, still walks the gardens, still laughs. And there's one rule they never break. No royal talk at the dinner table. Because yes, the world sees a new royal family rising, but behind the scenes, it's still just a family. And that is what's transforming the monarchy. This wasn't just a new reign, it was a rebirth. When King Charles stepped down, the world didn't witness a fall. They saw a legacy passed not by force, scandal, or desperation, but by choice, by love. Charles's reign won't be remembered for its length, but for its honesty. He became the king who knew when to let go, and in doing so, he may have saved the crown more than anyone who wore it before. William now wears it not because he was next, but because he said yes when the world needed him most. Catherine stands beside him, not as decoration, but as foundation. The woman who survived illness, raised children, and now holds a nation's heart. And the children? They're growing up fast, yes, but not hardened, not distant. They're being shaped by love, not just legacy. A monarchy once built on spectacle now stands for something far more rare, realness. The people no longer see unreachable royals in marble halls. They see a family, laughing, crying, holding each other, rising. The transition was silent, but it echoed, and the message was clear. This crown wasn't passed with gold or grandeur. It was passed with courage, with heart, with truth. Will this modern monarchy weather what's ahead? Will it evolve or fracture under future storms? Time will tell. But if this moment has proven anything, it's that the crown's power doesn't come from being worn high, but from being handed down with love.